So I'm going to share my story with you about my walk with God. So it kind of started out really young. I grew up in the church, actually, not this one out in Caledonia, out by, if any of you guys played out with football with those guys, there's actually a church out in Edison. It's a really small church. And I grew up out there, grew up in the church my whole life. And so I started out just believing in God right off the bat, because that's what my parents told me to. And I went to church every Sunday, never really listened to the messages that were going on, just kind of went to church to go to church because that's what I was told to do. Kind of fell asleep during services and drew on a notepad and hung out with my friends that were part of the church. But after a while, going to the little morning services, things that were going on, I started to get a message out of it. And around 8 years old, without my parents forcing it on me, I actually accepted Christ. And it was just one of those things where I remember it being like nighttime, and I wasn't even at church. It was just one of those things where I felt like God was talking to me, and my mom called up the pastor, and we kind of had like a phone conversation of like how to accept Christ into your life and those sorts of things and the steps to take. So that kind of happened. And after that, not too long after that happened, my grandpa passed away. I was still really young, about 9 years old or so. And my grandpa was one of the people that really showed what Christ meant to me. And so losing him was really tough on me and really messed with my faith, because basically what happened was before he passed away, he asked me to read him the 23rd Psalm. And I got to read it to him, and the look in his eye and how he looked at me really made me feel like God was right there in that moment with me. And then my mom said that I would see him the next day, and he passed away that night. And so it really messed with my faith and what I thought of God, because I thought that right in that moment, how my grandpa was looking at me, how everything went in that moment, that I was like one with Christ, like, okay, I'm a believer and this is what it feels like. And to have my grandpa gone just blew me out. I blamed God for my grandpa's death, and I went to church still because that's what my parents told me to do, and I wasn't even going for me, I was just going because that's what they told me. But every message was like a knife, because it was the God that took away my grandpa, and I couldn't face that. I was too young. And so from then on, basically, how I held my faith was that my relationship with God was that I would make deals with God, that how God was with me was if I do this for him, if I read my Bible, then maybe he'll give me something back in return instead of viewing it like it should be. And that pretty much happened throughout middle school and up until high school even, because I was bullied a lot throughout high school, and so I just didn't think that God was good to me. I thought that he was just out to get me or something. So I just kind of looked at God like this guy who's above me, who knew more than I did, but wasn't out for me. He was just kind of, there were more important people than me to worry about. So that kind of happened up until high school, where I started to get my own footing and things started to become better. And so because my life was better, it helped my footing with my life with God. And I had a falling out with the church where my family and another church family didn't get along. And so that made us go away from the church that we were at, and that was the only thing I knew up until then. So we started going to these other churches, and where I went before was kind of like a classical church where it was, you dress up and everything. And so we started to go to other churches, and we didn't dress up anymore. We got to dress down, and it became more of a more comfortable setting, just trying out all these different churches. And so it kind of gave me a different feel, because I always thought church was so strict, and that was kind of like how I saw church was through the people around me. And so I thought that because we were all dressed so nicely and, so solemn, I thought that was how God was. So to be able to be more in a relaxed setting, it kind of comfortabilized that more and kind of let me come out of my shell and step up to what it meant to be a Christian. And then eventually, after going through, we ended up here, and coming here, it actually, between first service and second service, seeing the two different service styles really opened up what opened up that you can be anyone you want to be and still be a Christian, that you can come from any background and have that relationship with Christ. And it really opened up my eyes to that I could walk with God again, that the damage that was done for my sake and not that it was a terrible thing. And I still was making these deals with God every day, and I was still going through a lot of hard times with the people around me and being bullied and being pushed on and a lot of struggles going on. But what ended up happening was I was in a relationship with someone, and they really questioned my faith. They were a really good Christian, and they basically said to me that I wasn't. They called me out, faced me, and pretty much were like, you don't really believe in God the way that you should. You're talking to God, you're walking with Him, but you're not walking with Him. You're kind of walking, a few steps back, wary that God's going to do something to you. You're not with God. And that questioning really pushed me to want to actually have a real relationship with God and really be a real Christian. And so throughout that whole process, it led me to want to do more, want to help out more with the church, and want to really discover more of what it means to me to be a Christian, what it means to me to walk with God, because I feel like it's different for every person, that every person has their own meaning of, what God is and what He is to you. And so that really kind of forced me into a position where I'm where I am now, with you guys, just leading and walking alongside you guys. And it's really helped me to discover a good spot and a good God, that bad things do happen in our lives, and we can't change those, that death is part of life, and that we're going to have struggles, but that even though you're going through struggles, God is really there, and it's not there in a way that you might see, that like you might cry, you might get beaten up or pushed on, but there are these hands on you trying to help you out and really trying to, push you to be the best you can be and be able to really walk with God. That's what I got.
Cool.